If you want to easily get into that state, that peak experience, social experience state where you're completely out of your head and everything just comes naturally, the words come more easily, you have more access to your mental faculties, you're more risk prone, you'll take risks, strategic risks in business or in the social context. If you see somebody cute, you won't overthink it, you just say what up, it's not a big deal. It's like a baby miniature enlightenment if you've socialized for a long period of time. I've always wondered why some days I have this total clarity of mind, like full access to my brain, and then other days I don't, and it always confused me and upset me. And so I've looked over the years of my life and connected one key thing that has allowed me to get this constantly throughout my life. And so I'm going to show you that today. I also want to be specific with my definition. This is a social flow state, which is a little bit different than the standard flow state. There's a ton of overlap, but a standard flow state can apply to pretty much any activity, right? You're playing guitar, you're totally in the mode, you're zoned in, and you're good at guitar, right? You're trying something a little bit challenging and it's just testing your ability. You can totally get into flow. You can get into flow doing a video game. But what I'm talking about here is not necessarily that, because you could play guitar, you're totally in the zone, you're locked in, and then you put the guitar down and now you're awkward and you're in your head because you were just doing the thing that got you into flow, but you're not in that just general brain social acceptance flow. That's a different thing. And so that feeling is, if I could describe to you, I'm going to just paint a picture to explain it to you, okay? Let's say that actually you are playing guitar, but you're playing, in this case, on stage with 10,000 people. And it's everyone that you've ever met and that you love. And they're all in the audience and they're cheering you on and you're playing out of your mind. You didn't even know you could play so good. And you get off stage and you see your best friends and they're like, dude, we love you, you're amazing. And then you see your family and they're like, you're so amazing. And your dad's like, I'm so proud of you. And then your high school crush comes up and kisses you on the cheek and you're like, they're like, you're the greatest thing I've ever seen. And you're like, oh my God, what is this? And you have 1,000 people you've never met being like, you're the man, or you're the woman, you're the best, we love you. You don't have a single worry in the world that you're not accepted here. And so every time you speak, people are hanging on every word, every note. Everything you say is just naturally charming and funny. Feels good to talk. You're walking with a bit of swagger. You're saying what up to everybody. You know you're the man here, okay? That feeling, that's what I'm talking about. That social energy. And that, by the way, if you now go pick up a piano, and let's say you've never played piano, I'm giving a bunch of musical examples, but let's say you try something you've never done before, but you're kind of in the mode, right? You're just in the flow, in the zone. You'll play it with much more confidence. You'll learn it much more quickly. If you start business ideating, you start coming up with things for your business, you're going to be much more centered and focused and risk tolerant and think about the world in such a more expansive way. And you'll be naturally quieter. You'll be naturally more funny, right? Or quieter in the mind. You'll just be much more dialed. And so what I'm focused on here is getting you into that feeling without having to be on stage with 1,000 people in your crush giving you a goddamn kiss on the cheek, okay? So here's basically how I want to describe how you can get into that feeling. Now, mind you, this is one of many ways. This is just the baseline default way to get into that social feeling. It involves other people, mind you. So there's other things that you can do. I'll make other videos and stuff you can do alone. But if you want to get into that feeling, this is how you do it with other people. So I'm going to give you an example in a social environment, and then I'll also give you an example on just like a day-to-day basis, okay? I want you to imagine that this chart is representative of some social environment. So it could be a party, it could be a networking event, it could be you're at work, it could be any place where there's a bunch of people, or even just some people, okay? Most people are this dotted line right here, okay? So I want you to imagine you get there. The dotted line is basically, let's say you run into some people that you know, or you just start up a conversation with anybody. Your social mood and your natural flow, your natural conversational flow will go up just a little bit. And then it'll go down when you start walking around or you need to go to the bathroom because you need to take a break. There's a little anxiety, there's a bunch of people. It starts going down and then you start another conversation, you talk to somebody else. And this just keeps going up and down. And you sort of, lay low pretty much the whole event until you either just give up and you stop talking to people. And then it goes back to your baseline, which will just have be down here. But what I would like to propose is that there's basically a completely alternative way of doing this, which is that you actually know that it takes momentum to get to the promised land, right? This feeling, this momentum flow state, okay? Social flow. That actually you can do the same thing. You talk to one person, and then you talk to another person, but you don't stop, okay? You just keep stacking it. You stack little social wins. So you start giving out compliments. You say, hey, I like your shoes. Hey, nice to meet you. How you doing? I'm gonna run to the bathroom. You guys should meet, right? You're just talking to a bunch of people. And you don't stop. You don't just go and meander or go to the bathroom to take a break. You just keep building it up until you break the momentum threshold. And then you get to this beautiful promised land where it just completely unlocks. And then once you're there, by the way, you don't really lose it. You're just kind of there. Most people don't understand that it's stopped. You can lose the momentum if you just keep breaking it up. So stack it. So It's pretty simple idea. I don't know why I made this whole chart for it, but basically just keep going. I also want to be clear that sometimes this can happen very quickly. It can take like 5 minutes less. If you see somebody that you know or an old friend and you're just laughing or you're dancing, you can get there pretty fast. Now, that's not typically going to be the case, right? Usually, even if you're an extrovert and you know that this is what you got to do, it still can take time. Sometimes it takes an hour. Sometimes it takes 2 hours. Sometimes 3 hours. But you'll eventually get, if you just keep stacking the little social wins. So this really applies when there's a bunch of people, right? There's a bunch of people around and you can just keep stacking them over and over and over. But what if you're not at a social event, right? You still want to get into that social flow and there's just not a bunch of people there. The other way to do it is kind of a day-to-day way of handling this, which is there's still people around, right? So if you live in a city or even if you live in like a smaller neighborhood, there's still going to be people on the street or at the cafe or the person who works behind the register that you can just get into that rhythm, right? So one thing that I like to do, one of my favorite ways to, on a day-to-day basis, get into this is I just have a rule that for the first 10, 20, pretty much everybody that I see in the morning, I just give a little share of my heart, you know? I just give a little like, good morning, how you doing? I like your dog. I don't know. Whatever comes to mind. I don't overthink it. So to recap, it starts with the state. It starts with the feeling. If you can build a system to get you into that state, to get you into that feeling reliably, where you feel totally focused, totally centered, you don't judge yourself, you're naturally funny and charming and charismatic, you don't think so much, it manifests in so many more parts of your life, right? If you start with the state, it'll inform how you believe about what you believe about yourself. It'll inform how you interpret the world, which informs your actions, which informs how you'll get your results. And the thing is that most people don't understand is that the social element is one of the key ways to get into it. It's not the only way, there's many ways, but it's one of the key ways. And so if you want to, you got to remember, there's a threshold here, mate. You got to get past the threshold, yeah? There's a threshold. So if you're in a social environment, and you're always, here's the secret, you're always in a social environment. Every time, well, unless you're like living in the woods, but there's other things you can do in the woods, right? And I'll get into those in another video. But if you want the social one, understand that there's momentum and it takes time. It takes a minute to get into it. So give yourself permission. Talk to some more people, develop the skill set, have some fun, and let it flow into the other parts of your life, right? Let it flow into your business and your work, how you believe, what you can do. You know, you'll try new things. The reason I'm doing this channel, the reason I even thought that this might be a good idea, this is something I've been focused on and I've just noticed in my own life is so valuable and beneficial. And if I didn't believe that there was an opportunity here, I wouldn't make this video. I literally wouldn't make this video. I would go do anything else, to be honest. So do it, okay?